Hey, Sunny, welcome to the podcast. Really appreciate you coming on here. How's everything going on your end?
No, things are great. Wonderful week.
How are you feeling about Bitcoin going to 100K? Excited?
Euphoric?
Yeah. Do you really care?
Euphoric?
Does it really
Huh?
matter to you?
Um, I like it. I like this
Yeah.
feeling because yeah, you're in the trenches for
Yeah.
like years and years, and then every now and then you start getting the calls from the high school buddies and the university buddies, and so it's always nice to reconnect with people. It's a bit unfortunate that it takes something like this for
So
that to
long.
happen, but yeah. No, I'm feeling
Yeah.
good, man. I don't know. I just I close my eyes and I just think back to the days when it was like $10 and $20, and now to think it's like at 100,000, it's just like we knew it was going to happen,
Insane.
but sometimes you still got to pinch yourself.
So what would you say is the main reason for why the price keeps going up? It just keeps rising and rising and rising. Why?
I think it's supply and demand. So the supply is, as I'm sure most of your listeners know, is limited. Only ever
Yeah.
going to be 21 million of them, and the demand simultaneously is skyrocketing, right? Whether it be nation states, like starting from El Salvador now to the United States. I mean, it's surreal to even say that, but adopting it to the Black Rocks and the micro strategies, and just hearing about the widespread adoption from countries to companies and everyone in between. It's something, right? And again, I think a lot of people are, even in the Bitcoin scene, who have been in it forever, are a little bit like, yeah, again, we knew, but like now it's like, when it rains it pours type of thing.
Yeah.
That's the feeling right now. So it's good. It's good. So I think it's a good thing for the whole industry, and I think it's positive, and yeah, it gets people talking. 100K.
Yeah. Yeah. Over time, I think more and more people are going to have to get this thing. They're going to have to accumulate it. Have you ever? So you run an exchange in India, Uno Coin. Um, in India, of course, people want gold. They don't care about digital whatever Ponzi, digital tulips, whatever it
Mm.
is. How do you convince people to change their mind? I mean, I think you've changed a lot of people's minds about how Bitcoin works. You changed part. You were actually part of the reason for why I got orange pilled. I think I met you. I met a couple other people at conferences, and it made a difference to see that you're in the trenches. You're showing people what Bitcoin is. So, what would your pitch be if somebody asked you why they should buy Bitcoin over gold?
Um, so on the India note, so they say Indian women own more gold than the United States government. That's one of my
Wow.
favorite facts. So yeah, so India is obviously the gold capital of the world. It's people love gold, and our parents, we grew up just kind of seeing it and around it. When I lived there as well, I noticed firsthand that gold is something that's it's just like part of the culture, right? But it's also so much more than that. It's like a way to save, and whereas here it's like everyone just racks up credit card debt. There it's the opposite. It's like people will, they get paid, they go line up at the gold store. One of every 10 stores is a gold store in India, and they
Wow.
turn it into gold because there's this intuitive understanding that it's money. So I think when you look at the 7 or 8, what is it, bullet points on Wikipedia around what is money, fungibility, divisibility, scarcity. There's all these kind of illities, and if you look through
Mhm.
them, gold hits a lot of them, but things like transferability. It's a bit harder to move big amounts of gold. And when you look at, even divisibility, right? It's like, it's divisible, but not nearly as nicely as Bitcoin, where it's like down to the decimal place and it's digital. So there's all these things that essentially make gold gold, but then Bitcoin kind of builds on that, right? And it
Yeah.
brings a lot more, like for example, scarcity as well. You can't just mine an asteroid or find a temple in India that just unlocks, 100 tons of gold was found and now the supply just went up, like a big amount. Bitcoin is truly scarce. So there's all these kind of, we can go into each one if you're interested or not, but and Bitcoin kind of, surpasses it, and it's like that's why a lot of people call it gold 2.0.
So if somebody were to ask you, gold is physical, gold is something that I can touch, I can hold on to it, I can put it in my safe. I can't do anything that like that with Bitcoin. I need to hold it on a USB.
Hmm.
How is it possible that something that's digital can compete with something that's physical? Because aren't they just completely different realms? They're completely on different fields of the world. One really doesn't have any physical appearance, and the other one you literally can't take out of physical reality. Like you can't destroy gold, but
Mm.
you there's never a physical Bitcoin to begin with. So how do you convince someone that, oh, you're saving in gold over the last 10, 20, 30 years, you should switch over to Bitcoin? Of course, the scarcity, that's important, but are there any other points that you like to make when you make that pitch?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to refrain from telling people to switch over to anything just
Mm,
because, I used to be a financial advisor and you can get in trouble for trying to convince
mm.
people. But I just get people to draw parallels in their own brain between, like, yeah, gold, but why gold, right? And I don't know. I mean, ultimately, you keep asking these questions enough times and you get to the like, what is money question, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where, fortunately or unfortunately, it kind of Bitcoin conversations always end up there, which is I think a very very important question to ask, mainly because. And by the way, you do a great job of, I think, answering that question. Guys like Robert Breedlove. I mean, you've got to be definitely one of the fastest growing channels on Twitter, on YouTube. So I mean, you know all about this, but so I'm preaching to the choir. But I think there's, like I said, there's 7 kind of things like scarcity, durability, portability, divisibility. Does it have so I think all these things kind of add up, and when you look at it through that lens, like what is money and what do you need to have good hard money, uh, you just kind of always come back to these 7 or 8 things, and when you check off, like, gold is great on many of those vectors, right? But when you dig a little bit deeper, you double click on some of the factors, you're like, oh, okay, it was confiscated, for example. So physical is great, but being physical is not one of the requirements for making money. Like, for example, our bank accounts are arguably money, but while it excels at transferability and even divisibility, things like scarcity start to come into question, right? Because, like, how many dollars was there 5 years ago, 10 years ago? How many are there today? Whereas gold, there's so much and only so much comes out, but even still, right? Like, as the demand for gold goes up, people start to mine more gold. And just yesterday I was hearing about, Elon Musk is going to go and mine gold from asteroids. Like, that just changes the equation completely. So so when you look at scarcity, which again is one of my favorite things about Bitcoin, and it's kind of like a double take. Like what do you mean it's scarce, right? Because digital goods by design are never scarce. It's like I can send you a million copies of my JPEG or my email, and it's all the same. So, yeah, I think so. I think that just educating people more than trying to sell them is part of, I guess, my goal or my life mission. And again, I didn't kind of choose to do that, but it just chose me, and I just felt like compelled to tell people about this. And so, yeah, people in India, I think I used to run the biggest Bitcoin meetups in Canada. I've worked for companies like Kraken and stuff. So I've had a chance to, see a lot of different kind of, meet with a lot of different people. But I really, really am touched just by the Bitcoin narrative and the story. So I'm glad to see that, it's like on the forefront of so many people's minds. And still, I think it's early. Like, as in, I don't
Yeah.
think even more than 0.1% of people actually care, right? Like, most people are
Yeah.
still like, scam.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, they have really no idea that um I mean, maybe this just sounds a little crazy, but Bitcoin isn't volatile. Bitcoin is the most stable thing that we have in the world. The only thing that's really volatile is the fact that we price Bitcoin in US dollars, which are, in my opinion, fake money. Right? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that Bitcoin is volatile? The way that I see it, people are looking at it from the wrong lens. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. Like, let's say you have a Bitcoin in your wallet, you're always going to have that one Bitcoin unless you sell it. The market value may increase and decrease in terms of US dollars, but over the long term, it always goes down. Or sorry, it always goes up. Your purchasing power always goes up. The purchasing power of the dollar always goes down. Have you looked into that? Have you thought about that? The
Yeah.
volatility part?
What I always say is, like, Bitcoin has no top because fiat has no bottom,
Hmm.
I mean, if, for example, somebody became a president of the United States and said, we're going to start removing dollars out of circulation and we're going to go on to, I don't know, like, they'd have to do so many things to like even try and compete. But I think, yeah, money print to go burr. I think that's, it's like that's all governments know to some extent, is just like print more money. And and yeah, and I mean, like, even like kids know that it's probably not just right to print money and things like that. But we've got this weird wacko system where it is, and I think they pry on the fact that most people have done poorly in math class and they don't have a long time horizon, so they can't see beyond, let's say, 6 months or a year, and so inflation is just like this invisible tax, right? And yeah, it's really sad, but I think but I think Bitcoin is here, right? It's like our savior, and it's given me, I mean, my career for the last 13 years and a purpose and a feeling of that the future is going to be better than the past, and that was something that I think, I don't know, as you study the money system and how it, like, Ron Paul and all these people, they do a great job of kind of they've done a great job of educating the masses about how corrupt the system really is. And so, but I felt like a lot of that would take my energy away from me, whereas Bitcoin was something that I could put my energy and focus towards, and not no, thank you. Whereas I could just put my energy towards it in a positive way and make a difference. Whereas, like I said, the more I think about the dollar and all that stuff, it's kind of depressing. Yeah, but for to each its own.
Yeah. Can we go into those 7 qualities or 7 points that you were mentioning
Mm-hmm.
before?
Mm-hmm.
Can you maybe explain in depth what
Yeah,
each one means, why it's so important?
yeah, for sure, for sure. So I mean, so I'll start with the one that I kept kind of coming back to, is scarcity, right? So I think, uh, and tell me if I'm, or just tell me when to switch gears to the next bullet point. Let's start
Of
there.
course.
So I think everyone knows, right? It's like there's 21 million Bitcoin that's ever going to exist. But then the question is how is that possible, right? Or at least I know for a lot of people I know,
Wait,
yeah.
let's go into why scarcity is important first of all, because there's
Hmm.
21 million Bitcoin. Why is that so important?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, the way I would maybe think about it or try and explain it is more along the lines of supply and demand, right? So I think
Mhm.
everyone's seen those two curves where it's like you have a supply of something, you have a demand, and these two curves meet at one point, and that's the price. And so I think Bitcoin, or sorry, money, what people don't realize is that supply and demand also apply to money. And so, and once you understand it, like just in terms of, let's say, chocolate bars, like if I have 1,000 chocolate bars and that's the last 1,000 chocolate bars on earth, people are going to be going ballistic, right? This is the last time they're going to get chocolate. But if I have a machine that can just make infinite amounts of chocolate, give everybody chocolate for dinner, chocolate for lunch, chocolate for breakfast, it's kind of like, I think I've had enough chocolate, right? So people tend to value things that are less, and again, I think that when you just have excess amounts of something, like leaves, why don't we make leaves money? Because there's just infinite amounts of them, and anyone can just come. So I think scarcity is super key, and I think even children can kind of, if you explain to them, right, that something is scarce, there's only so many of it, there's almost like an intuitive sense of immediate, like, oh, okay, there's value. Now it doesn't mean just because it's scarce there's value, but what it does mean is that it's part of the equation, right? It's one of the most important pieces. Yeah, I don't know, how would you explain it, like in
I
terms
mean, the way
of
that I
why scarcity is important?
the way that I look at it, we're consuming things that are created using time value or time, energy, resources. We're using raw materials to produce them. If we want to pay for them, if we want to give the person who creates them value, we should give them something that also takes time, energy, and resources to produce. So if we have dollars, for example, we can print those dollars out of thin air. If
Mm.
somebody's putting in the time to create oil, for example, why would they want something that can be created out of thin air in exchange for the oil that they produce and take time to make more of? And I
Mm.
mean, just the dollar not having scarcity, it makes it so that the US government has a massive advantage over everyone else. And that's
Mm.
absolutely not fair. right? Because they're able to produce more of these dollars while
Mm.
everybody else has to work for them. So I, for example, I have a $100 bill here just as a prop. I worked for this dollar. While the
Mm.
person in the background, they can print more of it. Why is that
Exactly.
fair? Right? So why would I want to continue accepting these dollars? And I think that scarcity point, everything that you said with the 21 million with US dollars being unlimited, I think that's so important because it changes your perspective of the future. Let's say, for example, if I know that somebody else can print more of these, why would I want to save them? I just want to get rid of them as quickly as I can. On the other hand, if I know for a fact that there's never going to be more than 21 million Bitcoin, and let's say I have zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, if I own that zero point 0.1 Bitcoin and I know there's going to never be more than 21 million, I'm going to think before I make the decision to buy something, before I make the decision to exchange it for something else. On the other hand, if we know that more of these can be printed, we know that more of them will exist, we know that these things will lose value over time, we don't think before we make our purchases.
Mm. Yeah. 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 So I think scarcity is a good one. Yeah. And I just
Yeah.
love how elegant it is and how it's like
Yeah.
starts at 0 and, reaches an asymptote of 21
Yeah.
million by 2140 or whatever it is. And it's, and, and I think a lot of people, even before the whole, what's it called? The kind of the current financial Keynesian system that we have, right? I think a lot of people intuitively got these things. Like I said, gold, yeah, minus the asteroid mining and the Indian temples and all that, it is as scarce as we could have gotten, right, in that point in time. And so people kind of inherently, I think to this day, like recognize that, hey, gold has value, because I think it fills up, like, I think all the gold in the world is like half a football field or something like crazy like that. So yeah, I think it's interesting. But again, going back to Bitcoin, it's mathematically scarce. Like, it's literally hard limited to 21 million. There is no asteroid. There is no, oh, we invented a new 3D printer and we can put molecules together. Like,
Yeah.
I love it. I love
That's
it.
actually what I wanted to ask you. So if somebody were to ask you, oh, it's scarce, you claim that it's scarce and there's
Yeah.
only 21 million. What if Satoshi pops up out of nowhere and says, oh, there's going to be 42 million tomorrow? What would you say to that? How do you answer that question? Like, have you looked into the code? Have you done
Yeah, of
that deep
course.
dive?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And yeah, exactly. And so this 21 million number is baked into the very protocol, right? Like,
Yeah.
voice over IP is like voice over internet protocol. TCP IP is like enables the internet to, or like SMTP is the technology behind email. So Bitcoin is like MOIP, right? Like money over internet
Wow.
protocol. And so the protocol itself is hard limited to 21 million, and nobody can change that. You'd need like a gargantuan effort to take over 51% of the network, and even that is not really a vector towards changing the number. It's like, and essentially it's limited to that because the people who hold Bitcoin and control Bitcoin and write code for Bitcoin and mine Bitcoin, and the whole ecosystem essentially believes that it should remain at that and
Mhm.
therefore it does. Yeah. So it's fascinating. I just love the whole creation of it. And I don't know if you heard, but I don't know if you talk about politics much, but like, dude, Trump, like the president, the most powerful person on earth, is now like gonna hold 1 million Bitcoin on the US whatever reserve asset. Like
Yeah.
that, if that, I don't know, isn't like the writing's on the wall type of thing, I don't know what is. So
That's
yeah,
huge.
so I think scarcity, man. Yeah, go ahead. You're gonna say something?
Like, I was just gonna say that's huge. The fact that you mentioned that actually ties in with the scarcity, right? So if there's 21 million and the US wants 1 million, how are they going to get it? They're going to have to pay more and more and more for it, as long as if they can't find 1 million at this price, they're going to have to keep increasing the price and paying more and more because of the scarcity, because of the supply and demand factors that we mentioned. Bitcoin is generational wealth, and to secure it, you need to make sure that you take self-custody. Most of you still haven't taken self-custody, and you're taking a serious amount of risk by leaving your Bitcoin on an exchange. Don't be one of those people who lost all of their Bitcoin by leaving it on an exchange that went bankrupt. Instead, reach out to the cybersecurity experts at The Bitcoin Way. Their patient and thorough one-on-one training teaches you how to self-custody your Bitcoin properly, how to run your own Bitcoin node and protect your privacy, and how to set up de-Googled privacy phones to make sure that nobody is spying on you. They can even help you explore Plan B residency programs to maximize your family's options. So when you're ready to go down the right rabbit holes, schedule a free consultation at www.thebitcoinway.com/Rajat. The best investment you can make is buying Bitcoin. The second best investment is securing it properly. Make sure that you don't delay because your generational wealth and self sovereignty are at stake. Go to www.thebitcoinway.com/Rajat to schedule a free consult today. Okay, so
Yes.
let's go to the second point.
So the next point is durability, which I like as well. That's another good one, right? So how durable is your money? Like how pervient is it towards just like falling apart into nothingness? And that's also an interesting one, right? Because gold is very durable, right? You can melt it, you can change the shape of it, you can eat it like some people do to just try and get it across border. You can do lots of things with it, but it's very durable, kind of in a physical sense, right? But durability, when it comes to Bitcoin, is also quite interesting because ultimately what you need to access your Bitcoin is something called a private key, right? So it uses public key, private key cryptography. And so the private key is nothing more than, a set of alphanumeric like digits, like A, B, 1, 2, 3. And so as long as you can keep that sequence of alphanumeric or like alphabets and numbers safe, whether you split up a piece of it in one vault, another one under the ground, and another one wherever at your home office, like if you can split it up, you can, like, your money becomes very, very durable in a kind of like a odd way, right? But again, I think like the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, thought about all these things. And there's hardware wallets and there's all these other kind of abstractions and ways to keep your Bitcoin safe and durable. But ultimately, it just comes down to the fact that it's just a bunch, like 50 or what is it, 60, like just characters, right? That's
Yeah,
yeah, it's beautiful. So yeah, I think again, durability is one of the, I'd say, the second big one. Do you
I think
agree?
there's also, yeah. I think there's also the fact that it's digital, so nobody can really destroy it. They
Mm,
can't bomb something. You can't shoot something. You can't set something on fire.
yeah. But I mean, my bank account's digital. So how does that compare?
I wouldn't. I mean, you can shut down the bank, right? There's let's say the bank says, oh, you can't access this, but with Bitcoin it's a little different, right? With Bitcoin, um you have those words that you were mentioning, the seed phrase. You
Yeah.
can memorize that if you want to,
Mm,
right? Nobody can erase your memory unless you die. You can have multiple copies of it. Of course, that can be destroyed, but that memory, I mean, that's not even digital. Or sorry, that's not even physical. That's
mm,
as close to digital as it gets, right? The memory that you have, not even digital, but it's not in the real world. It's not physical. It's not something that
mm.
you can destroy, right? That's how I see durability. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no, I think you're onto something there. I think the fact that it's decentralized, I think perhaps gives it credence
Oh
to the
yeah,
durability factor, right? Because like you said, banks, you could shut it down, or they can print money endlessly, but with this consensus system, it's hard to get around that.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's interesting. And then the brain, or the what is it called? Brain wallet?
Brain wallet.
Yeah, brain
Yeah,
wallet. I just love
that's
that
what it is. Yeah,
idea. I just love that idea. And again, because of Bitcoin's nature, it's very interesting. Like, you can also transcend like generational wealth, right? Like, you can use that private key in a clever way, where the keys are split up between your will and your lawyer and whoever it might be, and you can arrange it in such a way such that even if you pass away, you're able to kind of pass the Bitcoin on to your next generation. And I
yeah,
don't know, man, it's just, and like I said, multi-sig I find so fascinating, the fact that you can take these keys and essentially split them up, and now you have like
yeah,
an M of N James Bond like experience, where you need to, like, to unlock your Bitcoin, you need to, like, literally traverse across 3 countries and the other side of the
yeah,
world, and you can be like super, super secure about it. And
yeah,
so durability, I mean, there's so many, I guess, angles to it, but it is one of those tenets of money. And again, I think the digital element, like you said, gives it wings, where now you cannot, like I said, with gold, they came. I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard that they went door to door, or they did something along those lines where they could coerce you, right? They could come into your
Yeah.
house and they're like, "There's your gold," and now they take it. But with Bitcoin, maybe it's in your brain, maybe it's everywhere and nowhere. Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So I would say
Yeah.
durability is probably the second kind of big thing that comes to mind when it comes to Bitcoin.
Perfect. And the third one.
I would say the third one is probably around portability, right? So
Okay. Yeah.
that, so again, durability is just like how durable it is, right? That you cannot just destroy it. But then portability is how easy can you, move it. And so when I discovered Bitcoin, I was actually living in India at the time, and I was just getting into gold. I was big into Ron Paul, blah blah blah. I was just getting into gold, and I remember at one point, like my net worth was like half gold, half Bitcoin. It was like early. I was just like thinking to myself, like which way do I want to go? Do I want to become like a Peter Schiff, or like this Bitcoin thing is super nascent? Like, is it really going to be all that great? And I remember while I was sitting in Bangalore, a buddy of mine, he was living in New York, and they were flooded. They were hit by this big hurricane. And I just wanted to like send some money to New York or people in New York just to help them. And I was like, wait, if I wanted to do that with gold, I'd have to wait till Monday morning,
Huh.
go to the store, sell it, get the cash,
Yeah.
deposit in the bank, wire it over, wait a week. Like by then people aren't going to need the help, right?
Yeah.
So Bitcoin, I could just literally just in 5 minutes, boop, 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 zap, zap, zap. They've got the value now. They can cash it out and go help their family, their friends. So the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, this is like gold with like a teleportation device built like right into it. Like this is magnificent, right? And so you can literally
Yeah.
just zap it from like one person to another, which is remarkable, right? And so when you go back to gold again, you realize that there you go again. Bitcoin is far superior from a portability standpoint. The brain wallet you brought up is, I think, another prime example. Like, good luck taking, a couple kilograms of gold across the border. And people have tried, and it's not so easy.
I think it's also the importance of, let's say, for example, whatever's happening in Gaza right now,
Mm-hmm.
happening in Israel, what's happening in just various parts of the world, Ukraine, Russia. I'm not talking about the political side of things. I don't care who's right, who's wrong. I don't know enough about it to comment on that. The fact that there are people there who have all of their wealth tied up in real estate, and they can never take that value with them. That value is gone. It's destroyed. They're never going to be able to take that land. They can't get that land back. If it's been taken over, it's taken over and you're done. It's over. You can't do that with Bitcoin, right? With Bitcoin, you can actually, let's say, for example, if something were to happen and you need to cross your border, you don't have to do anything. You have that brain wallet, you have a piece of paper that has your private key on it. You don't have to worry about your government taking it from you. But maybe if you have it on a piece of paper, then, but the fact that you can take it across borders is just huge. That portability factor is massive. And then it also goes into the fact that, let's say, for example, if I wanted to do business with somebody in Tokyo, I'm in Toronto right now. If I wanted to use gold, I literally can't send them money. Maybe I can use a Visa or MasterCard, but then what happens if my financial institution blocks me from going into doing that, right? If they just say, oh, you can't use our financial system anymore, we don't like you, you're done, it's over. Nobody can stop you from doing that. Nobody can prevent you from taking your Bitcoin across borders. Nobody can prevent you from sending Bitcoin to someone else. And that's, I think that's so important to the portability side of things. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree, man. I think, and in fact, am I able to do? I just want to share something with you. Can I
Yeah.
share something? Screen
Yeah, at the bottom there should be a screen share.
share, share. Um, yeah, here we go. Share. So this was kind of what I was trying to allude towards. Yeah. So
Oh, amazing.
yeah. There's lots of different versions of this, right? But so we
Yeah.
talked about portability, we talked about durability, we talked about scarcity, right? But you see here, if you kind of glance through, there's just
Yeah.
so many elements that Bitcoin has that
Yeah.
that gold and fiat essentially doesn't. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we can just keep going, I guess. But
Yeah.
I definitely think, just to put a bow in it, I think I think portability is an interesting one, and it's one that people should ponder about. Just to kind of take a little bit of a sidestep. Like what like I just always found it funny that people will get into divorces over money. They'll get into wars over money, but yet like when you like people wake up early morning, they'll go to school for 20 years of their life, for 30 years of
Yeah.
life. But when it comes down to actually, like when you ask people like what is money, most people are kind of like almost blank. Like they have no idea. They just know they need to earn more of it and more of it, more of it. But like, what is it? So I think
Yeah.
just talking about, these like kind of basic things, but it just makes it a bit more like, oh my God, like, okay, maybe Bitcoin is onto something, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like,
It's getting there, right? Like
oh, you have
it's
to get
giving us
Bitcoin. Yeah. It's like, what are
it's
the
giving us
essence of it? Yeah.
oh,
Sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead.
It's giving us this thing to actually think about it. Like we're having these conversations. Before Bitcoin, I would never have this conversation. Right?
Exactly.
I wouldn't
Exactly.
be talking to you about this. I wouldn't have met you because of without Bitcoin. I like it just it changes everything. The entire world is changing because of this thing, because it's a much better form of money.
Yeah. I remember when I met you, someone introduced you as Mini Me.
Oh,
And they were like,
I
Sonny,
remember
there's this guy. He's like mini you,
that.
And he's like, oh, he's just as passionate as you, and he's like, he's on to this, and he loves Bitcoin, and I was like, oh my God. And then I thought about it the other day, and I'm like now I'm mini you with your social media following. Like you're
Oh,
you're you're like in beast mode. So
yeah.
congrats to you. Yeah. So
Thanks,
okay. So,
man. I
so
appreciate it.
I was gonna say the next big one that comes to mind is fungibility. Yeah, so that's another
Okay.
one
Yeah.
that's interesting. So what that means is like if I have $100 bill and you have $100 bill, we can exchange it
Yeah.
for one another. Or if I have an ounce of gold and you have an ounce of gold, we can exchange it. If I have one Bitcoin, you have one Bitcoin, we can exchange. So it's like fungibility is another key things, right? About money, right? What makes money solid money. Whereas like, this cup is not the same as this cup over here, right? So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily, but money, there needs to be that element as well to it. So it's fairly self-explanatory.
That one's easy. Yeah.
But I think it's maybe a fancier way of saying just like that it's, interchangeable or whatever.
Yeah. No, that one's simple. I don't even really have any thoughts on that. I think that's the easiest one to explain. What about the fifth one?
I think the next one is highly divisible, right? So
Divisibility.
divisibility is another big one. So in the case of the dollar, it can be divided up to pennies, right? So that's like so 1/10 of a dollar or whatever it is, or tenth to the 10th decimal place rather. You have a penny being kind of like the lowest common denominator when it comes to dollars, right? When it comes to gold, you can imagine yourself like, what is the tiniest amount of gold that you can reasonably go to like the grocery store or buy a house or whatever with. It's like you can get pretty small, but there's like a limit to before it just doesn't even make sense. But with Bitcoin,
Yeah.
it's divisible up to 9 decimal places, or is it 8?
8.
8. Okay, 8 decimal
100
places.
million units. That's crazy.
Boom, boom, right? So what is like the eventual thing is 1 Satoshi, right? Which is like the smallest amount of Bitcoin is worth maybe $1 someday in the future, right? That's kind of the dream. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think divisibility is an important one, and it's also an important one for I think a lot of new people who are learning about Bitcoin, because I feel like there's this serious like brain fog around, oh, Bitcoin's 100,000, so I can't buy one Bitcoin anymore. It's too expensive. But well, guess what? You can buy 0.000001 Bitcoin that's worth, let's say, whatever, $1 or 10 cents. Like you can buy small amounts of it. And that's what, what obviously you and I encourage people to do is just like $10 a day or a month.
Yeah.
That just start somewhere type of thing. And
That's
then,
it.
and then when you have a little bit of it, you're kind of encouraged to, tinker with it and learn more about it.
Yeah. Until you send a transaction, I don't think you're going to understand the portability, the divisibility, all these things. I think it's really important to see that with okay. So I like to compare it to something like gold. With gold, for example, you have to divide it into smaller pieces. You have to have specialized equipment. You have to weigh it. You have to have a specialized scale. Like you can't use a regular scale to weigh gold, right? Because if you have a rounding error, that rounding error is probably going to be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars at some point. right? Because gold's value will continue to rise in terms of Bitcoin, in terms of dollars. So I think that gold is divisible. I'm not saying it's not divisible, but I feel like it's much more complicated to divide into smaller units. But for example, if I wanted to send you one Satoshi, just go into my wallet, type in one Satoshi, say on Lightning, I send you one Satoshi. It takes me 2 minutes, maybe even 30 seconds to do that transaction. But with gold, what do I have to do? I have to find a scale. I have to find some kind of professional who can give me $1 worth of gold, exactly $1 worth, and it's just so much more of a hassle to divide other things. I was also thinking about the fact that you can break down the units of Bitcoin and then you can put them back together very easily, right? So that's really important to me because let's say, for example, if you have a diamond, a 5 carat diamond is worth magnitudes of orders of magnitude more than a 1 carat diamond. Even though there's a 5x difference in the size, the 5 carat diamond is probably going to be worth significantly more than 5 times more than the 1 carat diamond. So that, like, if you let's say, for example, if you have diamonds and you say if you use those as money, if you split that 5 carat diamond into 1 carat diamonds, you're going to have collectively less value. And I think that's partly what plays in on Bitcoin's value. The fact that you can divide it as much as you want to with barely any cost. You can't do that with real estate. You can do that with stocks now, but you couldn't do that before with stocks. With gold, it's extremely difficult. I mean, it's I don't think there's going to be any developments on letting you be able to uh, shave down a bit of gold and then use it to pay for coffee or something. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But that divisibility factor, I think that's really important. I don't think most people really think about it too much, but I think it is very, very important for something to be money.
Yeah. So you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, I can see it.
So I think that, so we talked about fungibility, durability, portability, scarcity. We talked about scarcity, yeah. I think
Yeah,
another
yeah. That was the
interesting
first
one
one.
is impossible to forge or
Oh
impossible
yeah.
to counterfeit. So I was in Thailand for a conference just like 2 weeks ago, and I had like 20 American on me or something, and I had to pay like a
Mhm.
tuk tuk, one of those tuk tuk drivers.
Yeah, yeah.
And he looked at my money and he's like the first $20 bill, he was like, "Oh, this is fine," but this one here, he's like, "Nope, this is not going to work. This is fake."
Mm.
I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know?" And not, he's like, "Oh no, in Thailand we get a lot of like fake dollars, so everyone knows what fake money is like or whatever, right?" And then in gold, you hear about all these horror stories of like tungsten being,
Tungsten.
injected or whatever, or like gold wrapped around tungsten. So there's all, and it's very hard to prove, right? Because tungsten, I think, weighs the same as gold, so you have to actually like you have to go through a lot of work and pay money and whatnot to figure out whether it's real. So I think the fact that Bitcoin, it's like when you send it to people and it's like essentially built on like cryptography and is just so rock solid when it comes to like knowing that this Bitcoin is Bitcoin, especially if you're using the right
Mm.
software, doing everything. Then yeah, I think that's another huge thing that the like our money system hasn't even figured out how to solve. Like I said, I literally thought I had like a legit $20 bill that like a tuk tuk driver in Thailand was like, "Nah, dude, this is fake."
It's fake. Yeah.
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 So I think forge, like being able to like counterfeit is another interesting thing about like the tenets of what is money.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's so important because I mean, if you have a gold standard and you want to pay for something with gold, you have to do various tests to figure out whether it's real or not. You have
Mm.
to weigh it. You have to whatever you have to do. I don't even know how to confirm whether gold is real or not, but it'll take you something like 3 to 5 business days to confirm if it's real. How do you confirm a transaction like that, especially if it's final settlement and there's nothing that you can do to reverse that transaction? Next to impossible to reverse that transaction if you've handed over the gold, person has accepted, and they've given you your goods and services.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. And so just to kind of like, I just keep showing different versions of this. But this is the one I was looking for here, right?
Love it.
So gold, Bitcoin, fiat, you've got kind of like the pluses, the minuses. And so we talked about durability, we talked about divisibility, we talked about fungibility, we talked about portability, we talked about verifiability, which is like, is it counterfeitable or not? We talked about scarcity. And then I think the final one is track record, right? Which in
Yeah.
this slide, we have it as a minus. But this slide is about 5 years old or 6 years old. So the fact that, yeah, gold has been around for 10,000 years, so can't compare, right? But 10 years? 13 years? What are we going on now with Bitcoin, right?
16
Like
years almost.
16 years. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. It's almost 2 decades. Like best performing asset in the history of mankind. And I used to, like I said, be a financial advisor a long time ago, and 10 years was kind of like the period that you would look at, right? Like, oh, the S&P 500, whatever. You'd always kind of point, oh, 10 years track record, blah, blah, blah. It's always up. So I think the fact that Bitcoin's been around for 10 years kind of checks off on that last box. And
Yeah.
hence, you're seeing now, like I said, nation states, the biggest companies in the world. BlackRock is like United States, China, and then you have BlackRock, like as in like if BlackRock was a nation state, it would be right up there. I think you have Elon Musk talking about, I mean, I think Tesla's still got Bitcoin on their balance sheet. SpaceX has
Yeah,
back
they have something like
Bitcoin.
10,000.
Yeah, you've got now, all these like firecrackers and like the Trump administration that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets. They're personally this, that. So, I mean, then there's a new appointing guy today that's like a pro Bitcoin crypto guy. David Sachs, I think his name is.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's just like on and on and on. And now it's like I've been in Bitcoin, whatever, 13 years, I guess myself. So it's been like, it's just more and more and more intense and more like fast and moving and more exciting, and it just keeps getting that way week after week, and it never rests. There's no weekend, no weekday,
Yeah.
no time. I mean, it is the most beautiful thing ever. And so, yeah, I'm just really, really proud to be a part of this industry, and, took a lot of arrows in the back. Obviously, I think, the whole RBI story that happened to us in India and everything. So
Yeah.
we're really, I don't know. I'm just really grateful that we've made it this far, and that I haven't died yet, that I'm still alive to like see all this
Yeah.
happening is
Wait,
something
can you
else.
explain the RBI situation if you're able to?
Yeah. We can go into it a little bit now, but if you want to do like another session on it as well, I'm open to it.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but in a nutshell, I mean, I think it's kind of quite an interesting story, because our stated mission at UnoCoin is bring Bitcoin to billions. We're India's first Bitcoin exchange. We started in December 2013. Our investors are Tim Draper, Barry Silbert, many others, like Max Kaiser is one of our
Wow.
investors. Yeah, we're really, really fortunate to have them as supporters. And so in 2018, the story goes, we did a big event in the Sheraton in Bangalore in December 2013, where we launched UnoCoin. And at that event, we had someone from the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, show up, and we, like, I think before the thing even started, somebody came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, Sonny, somebody wants to speak with you." I go over, walk over, and I meet this gentleman, and he was like, "Look, if you, I'm from the RBI, but if you mention to anyone that I'm here, I'm just gonna stand up and walk out." I was like, "Oh," I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Enjoy your samosa." Like, I don't know. And then I think a week after that event, or maybe 4 days after that event, RBI issued their first notice on their website saying
Wow.
Bitcoin is, bad. Essentially, Bitcoin is volatile. Bitcoin is, that we have concerns around security. So buyer beware type of thing. Not too much happened. I mean, it caused a lot of attention. Actually, it was a pretty badass story, because when that happened, the entire industry kind of shut shop for a little bit. We were like, wait, so what are we going to do? And then our lawyer, who's best lawyer in the universe, Nishit Desai and Associate, these guys have about 100 or so engineers that become lawyers. They're very, very technical. They knew Bitcoin better than we did back when we met them in 2013. They said, look, we know the law. Bitcoin is not illegal, per se. That was kind of their big quote. And they said, as per their legal analysis, Bitcoin is not illegal. So they didn't say Bitcoin is legal. They said Bitcoin is not illegal, because
Hmm.
you can't legalize something, but you can just, anyway, it's kind of a play on words, but
Yeah.
they came out with that statement. They made it publicly in their office. They had reporters that kind of went on blast with that message, and that's what enabled us to kind of open up again. And so, anyways, a second issue was noticed maybe 5 years later, and then finally in 2018, the third and final notice came about on their website, and they essentially instructed all the banks to shut down the banks, the bank accounts of Bitcoin
Oh,
businesses.
wow.
And so that, being a Bitcoin exchange, that was, detrimental. That should have, I guess, killed us. I mean, if we weren't like a cockroach or whatever. And thanks to obviously my two co-founders, Harish and Satvik, who really took the fight to them. And yeah, it was a 2 year long battle. There'll be a 10-part like Netflix meets Bollywood special someday when I'm like old and gray. Made about it, but yeah, just to kind of TLDR it, 2 years, and then it went from High Court to Supreme Court, and finally all three judges ruled in our favor that
Wow.
it was against our human rights. And it was Harish, my business partner, who was on trial, who because ultimately they were like, look, you guys are all companies, like you can't violate the human rights of a company because a company's not a human. So they needed an
Yeah.
actual human to point towards, and it was Harish, that my co-founder, that was on the stand, that was in the court every day, and like put in his heart and soul and fought really for the industry, for 1.5 billion people. And yeah, we won. I think that speaks obviously to one thing, which is that my co-founders have balls of steel, but it also speaks to the fact that there is justice in India, at least, right? It's not like China, for example, where the government just decides that they're going to shut you down, and there's no kind of legal recourse, there's no court system or whatever.
Yeah.
And so in India there is. So yes, things can be a bit messy in India, but yeah, the British left behind a pretty amazing system, right? So yeah, so I think I'm very bullish on India. Like I said before, Indian women own more gold in the United States government. I'm very bullish on Lightning, and just like Bitcoin disrupting remittance. India is the largest inward remitter in the world. I think that is fascinating, and just a ginormous opportunity that UnoCoin, I think, is very well positioned to kind of capitalize on. And just on and on, right? Like I said, most number of digital natives, most number of young people, most like English speaking, democracy, like
Very smart
ally
people.
of US, smart people. I mean, brown is the new white, right? No, I'm kidding. I say that to all my white friends. Are like,
That's so
did he
funny.
just say
That's so funny. Yeah.
that? No, no, no. I'm just so. I mean, I'm kind of like I'm born in Canada, and so I'm from here, but ultimately my parents are from India. I've always been visiting India since I was a kid, and I'm very, very bullish. And I truly believe that Bitcoin and India are a match made in heaven, and that India
Yeah.
will, maybe not in the next 1 or 2 years, maybe in the next 1 or 2. In fact, in the last bull run, India emerged as, I would say, the number 2 country after the United States
Mm.
in terms of adoption and volume and everything. So yeah, don't we shouldn't turn our back on India. I think India's like the best days are ahead, and yeah, and then now with what's happening with Trump and with with just everything,
Yeah.
I've never been more bullish. Like I used to say, oh, I think Bitcoin's going to 1 million. Now I think that's going to be like the floor, type of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see 10 million. I can see
Yeah.
100 million. And I don't know if you've heard the story, but I actually was investigated by the CFA Institute
Mm-hmm.
for saying that
Yeah.
Bitcoin is going to these ridiculous numbers, and it clearly bothered people because they don't see where this is going. They were late. They didn't figure it out. I mean, you're still early. You're still super early, but these people, maybe they saw it at $100, $1,000, $10,000, and they couldn't let go of their ego, so they reported me. Right? I mean, that's the thing. So now, after I got reported, I'm actually more bullish than ever. So I think Bitcoin's going to $100 billion at this point. Like it's going up forever, right? Because the fact that people are so angry about this and they had to report me just shows me that this thing is more powerful than everyone. And they told me that the investigation is dropped because there was nothing that I was saying that was incorrect. Everything that I was saying was right. Bitcoin just hit $100,000. I said this maybe a year ago. I was saying this. Bitcoin's going to get 100,000, 200,000, 500,000. It's going to keep going up. But that's the thing. Like you said, nobody can destroy Bitcoin. Nobody can stop it. This thing is everyone who studies it is extremely bullish, and they all want more. I've never met a person who studied Bitcoin and doesn't want more, right? And over time, like that's just it just shows you the power of this thing, and it shows you the importance of accumulating and just putting some aside, because otherwise you're not going to have the amount of wealth that you should. So I have a question that I want to ask you. This is a question that I ask all my podcast
Uh-huh.
guests. Question is, what do you think is the most important downstream effect of Bitcoin? So let's say 10 years from now, how do you think Bitcoin is going to change the world?
Oh, abundance. Abundance. I think
Abundance.
it'll
Wow,
lead
okay.
to, I think, a scarce.
Oh, sorry, you
Oh, sorry, I just muted it by
oh, no
accident.
worries.
No, I was just saying is I think a scarce money supply leads to an abundant world. Yeah, because I mean, like if you look at like without trying to get too conspiratorial or whatever, but if you look at how much money the average person makes, and then you subtract, let's just say income tax, right? Let's say in Canada, if you're at the highest bracket, it's 50%, right? But then it doesn't end there, because then you spend money, they tax you. So then you save money, they tax you again. You
Mhm.
die, they tax you. Like you look at all you go on a plane, they tax you. But if you look at the actual math, and then once they're done taxing and taxing and taxing, then they go and borrow money from other countries and in debt our unborn children, right? And then when they can't do that anymore, they go to the third mechanism, which is they print money endlessly to infinity and beyond. And when you look at you do the math, you realize that the 100,000 that you made or whatever is actually dwindled down to like fractions.
Yeah,
Like you're left with peanuts of your own
yeah,
life force.
yeah,
And then you go, wait, there's an escape valve to that? Like, obviously, it's going to 100 billion or whatever you said, because we're far more abundant than we know ourselves to be, if you will, right? Like we're kind of like in a fishbowl, and we think that's all there is, but in reality there's just so much more. And yeah, and I think you need a bunch of things to get to true abundance. But I think and I think AI obviously is a big piece of that puzzle, but I still believe that, like, you can have AI and make yourself way more efficient, but if you don't have a way of capturing that efficiency, if all of your life force is being drained away with this, like the system that we have today, it doesn't matter how much better your AI is making you, right? Like you're done. So you have to have a way of harnessing that value you're creating, and essentially be able to put it into, like you said, a scarce resource that will ultimately, hopefully, gain value over time.
yeah. And I'm not sure if you've heard this. Just based on what you're saying, Bitcoin is abundance. It's a way to escape from the inflationary regime that we have, the theft that we're seeing. I'm not sure if you saw this, but do you know who Christine Lagarde is?
Of course, I don't know
Oh yeah,
her, but
perfect.
I know of
So
her.
so
Yeah.
for my audience, people who don't know who she is, she's the president of the European Central Bank.
Mm-hmm.
She actually said, so there's a tweet that I just pulled up from Max Kaiser. As Christine Lagarde said, Bitcoin is the escape hatch. Exactly. Oh, sorry, I didn't show the tweet. As Christine Lagarde said, Bitcoin is the escape hatch. Like that, just the fact that the president of the European Central Bank is saying that to you, that should tell you,
Well,
like, the
look up Obama's one. What is it? Swiss bank in your pocket.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Oh, dude, they all know. They all know.
yeah,
Everyone knows. The news is out. I mean, there's no hiding it
yeah,
now. There you go. There you
yeah.
go. So yeah,
Like, this is crazy. Look at this. If governments can't access phones, everyone's walking around with a Swiss bank account in their pocket.
yeah,
Like, if you don't
glorious,
see where this is
glorious.
going, if you don't see where this is going, I think some people are just, at this point, some people are just like delusional.
I kind of like when people don't get it. I'll be honest. Like
Oh, why?
I was on a phone call with I don't want to mention his name, but I was on a phone call with a
Yeah.
friend who's very, very well off. Like his family is probably, I don't know, maybe in the billion status, and some of them have known forever, like since university or high school.
Mm.
And he was like, dude, like we do deals with the government. It's not even in my interest to get Bitcoin. I don't want to get Bitcoin. And I was like, yes, like I love it. Why? Because like when everybody's like, oh, Bitcoin's amazing, like how much higher can it go? But it's like
Yeah.
the fact that 99.9% of the people don't give a shit It just means that we're early and just stay quiet, bury your head in the
Yeah.
sand, work as hard as possible, and make as much money as possible, and put as much of that as, and don't live a extravagant life, and put as much of that as extra money into Bitcoin as you can every month. Like that is the play.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so, I'm probably going to go back on blast with conferences and, all this talking stuff. But I also kind of like get too scared to be like, you know what, like let everyone kind of think what they want to think type of thing. Right. And like, and now it's like, now there's no doubt anymore. There's no like, oh, is it, maybe, can I, should I? It's like, are you crazy? Like now it's, and when people ask me and they try and question me on Bitcoin, I just go, it's not even on me to convince you. You have to
Oh,
convince me why fiat is good, right? Because
yeah.
it's like, buddy, like, hello, United States government, BlackRock, like Bob's your uncle. So I don't know. I feel like the tables have turned. I went for lunch with, should I mention this? Yeah, let's just say a close family friend. Okay, my brother the other day, and he was like, wait, but he's like, I thought you're all against mainstream. Like, so now that Bitcoin is mainstream, shouldn't you be, against Bitcoin?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, no, we love Bitcoin because Bitcoin makes sense. And if mainstream is finally coming around to it, then like that's amazing for Bitcoin. So I don't know, man. I think a lot of people are kind of like, people who have been like, no, this is not going to go anywhere. I think people like that are probably starting to lose a bit of their steam. And so, yeah. And then, like I said, I think the best new thing to do is when you're with friends. I have a hard time doing this because it's like, I'm like the worst at this, but the funnest thing to do is just not talk about Bitcoin. Like, you've been talking about it for
Mhm.
10 years, but when you like show up and see buddies and like, they're like, what, 100K? It's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that the case? Okay. Yeah. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, I've more recently just started doing that. I used to talk so much about Bitcoin when it was at like 60, 50, 40K,
Mm,
even in family events and stuff. More recently, everybody's mentioning it to me.
yeah.
People have been saying it to me themselves because they see that it's going up and they see that I've been talking about it for so long.
Mm,
And they just mention it. Hey, where do you think it's going? Do you think it's going even higher? Yeah, it's going higher. It's always going higher.
mm,
You just have to have the mental strength to go through 3 years of being wrong, and then that fourth year you're going to be right. Even if you buy the absolute top, let's say Bitcoin it's at 101K right now. It's at 101K. If it drops to over the next 3 years to, let's say, 40K, 50K, I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but if it does, you just have to be okay with hearing the people around you say that, oh, you're an idiot. You don't know what the hell you were talking about. You're a dumbass. Because eventually you're going to end up being right. And they're going to come back to you and they're going to say, oh, you were right all along. You knew everything. You knew exactly what's going to happen. So to me, people have been saying, oh, I wish I had listened to you. I wish I'd gone in when you told me at 16K, at 17K. I didn't, but now I can't do anything about it. You should have pushed me harder. There was actually, I had a friend who told me, you should have pushed me harder when Bitcoin was at 17K. How do I push somebody harder to put their money into something that they have no idea what it is, right? This is crazy. Over
yeah,
time,
man.
I think that,
Yeah, no, I think the key now is, I mean, I think you're doing a great job. Just continue maybe the education path, not get
yeah,
too pushy, because now it's like it sells itself. Like, you got the track record, you got, it's just too much. There's too much in favor
yeah,
of it now that it's like hard to deny. But
yeah,
again, like I said, I get excited now with the opposite, which is when I find out people don't care about it, or they think it's going to be like, oh, it's going to fail. It's like, seriously? Like, who are
yeah.
you?
It almost sounds crazy, but I think Bitcoiners are probably the only ones that get happy when the price of their asset drops.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, that's what I was gonna say. I think the best way, because I think a lot of people, they're like you said, they're trying to time it. Like, oh, is it gonna go down? Oh, is it gonna go up? Right? It's like, no, that's the wrong question. Like, you should just, like, if you're like, you should study it. That's the only thing we ask you to do, is just study it, learn about it, and upon doing so, if you come to the conclusion that it's the future of money, the play is, like, again, live on as least amount of money as you need, make as much as you can, and then funnel the difference into Bitcoin every month. And like you said, if the price goes down, guess what? You're getting more Bitcoin. If the price goes up,
That's
oh,
it.
your net worth just went up. Like, happy both ways. I think the
Exactly.
worst thing is to try and time, and that's coming from somebody who runs a Bitcoin exchange, right? But you won't ever find me telling people like, oh, trade or even like promoting Ethereum or any crypto. Like for me, it's like all roads lead to Bitcoin. If you're in anything else, like we launched Uno Coin before we had anything but Bitcoin. The way I'd set it up was you could only trade your random coins for Bitcoin. So it was like a
Mm.
one-way street. But then people started getting
Oh
pissed
yeah.
off. They're
Oh,
like,
that's
ah.
smart. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, but no, I think yeah, just learn about it. That's it. And then like you said,
That's it.
anybody who's put in their 10 hours, 100 hours, whatever, they're never going to look back. And yeah, and
Actually,
money's
I wanted
important.
to ask you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, how many hours do you think you've studied Bitcoin for? Do you have any estimates on that?
I feel like it's considerable given that I've given my life to it, right? So meaning I
Yeah, yeah,
wake up every day, every morning, working in the space, living it, head of media Kraken, like doing Matador, doing this, doing that, flying. I've been to 20 countries this year,
huge.
just traveling and meeting people at conferences and stuff. So I feel like, and I'm always learning, and I never feel like, okay, I got this thing. Like it's always like you're at the edge of your seat, and like it could go bad, it could go good. Like it's like a movie, right? Every day. So I feel like, I don't know, what is it? How many hours are there in a year times 13 years? Like and it's like to
Yeah,
this day I'll be on the in the bathroom, like learning about Bitcoin, reading reports and papers and whatever, like tweet threads and blog
yeah,
posts. And so, and there's just so many threads to Bitcoin that it's really difficult to be like, oh, I get Bitcoin. Like it's like
yeah,
so many game theory and like cryptography and money. Like we're just talking mostly about money today, but like there are like just how you cannot stop talking about money. Like we could talk like for 10 sessions and go into
yeah,
different parts. There's like 100 other areas within Bitcoin that are just as equally like the Byzantine fault tolerant system, and like what's the Byzantine, like how did he solve that math
yeah.
puzzle, and and just like there's so much depth to it that yeah, it's just like it's just a fun industry to be in. So I don't know, I haven't done the math, but I'd imagine it's like well above 10,000.
I just did the quick math. If you spent 8 hours thinking about learning about Bitcoin every single day for the last
Okay.
13 years,
Yeah.
you would have spent almost 40,000 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, and I've been creating content. I mean, I have hundreds of songs that I've made
Yeah,
about Bitcoin. I have, you know what I mean, like blogs and like just like because I've done conferences with 1,000 people. I've done at least 20 or 30 conferences like that. So and from every conference that I host or I attend, I'm like learning from people, and you know what I mean. So yeah, I think it's kind of unfair to compare like in 8 hours. Like who works 8 hours? Like when you're in Bitcoin, you're doing like literally from
14 hours.
6 in the morning today to like 6:30 or whatever, 12, 14 hours a day every day. Tomorrow I've got 5 meetings. Like it's a Saturday, so I'm pretty sure it's in the 50, 60,000 probably.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Easy.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Hey, Sunny, I really appreciate your time here. I wanted to ask you just a couple more questions.
Sure.
One would be just, I guess you can answer them in whatever order you want to. One would be just, what's your final tip for my audience here? We're entering a bull market. A lot of these people haven't gone through that before. Actually, I haven't gone through a bull market while owning Bitcoin before. So that's the first question. The second question is, what are you doing on your end? Are you working on anything? Are you building anything?
So let's okay. So I appreciate that one. What's the first one? Can you kind of like drill in a bit
Oh
more?
yeah,
So what is yeah, can
just
you
final
repeat the
tips on how
question?
to navigate.
Huh?
Just final tips on how to navigate the bull market for people who haven't been through it before.
How to navigate the bull market? I think okay, so learn as much as you can about Bitcoin, like we said before, like optimize around that because risk is a function of information and control. So like you want to maximize how much information you have about this topic, and
Yeah.
therefore you will reduce your level of risk, right? Because you'll just know more about like how to protect it, how to secure it, the fact that it's all these things that we're saying, you can verify whether those claims are real. So I think learning is definitely should be the focus for everyone, and it is for me to this day. And Yeah, so I think learning. I think once you've developed like a level of conviction, then is to kind of like allocate a certain percentage of your cash flow and net worth towards Bitcoin. So whether it's 0.1% or 1% or 10% or 50%, eventually, like many people, have done, and then maybe 90%. Yeah, so I think, and then the third thing is what I just said before, is just like live below your means. Try and earn as much money as you can, right? And it's still kind of, you can earn Bitcoin, right? Obviously, which is even better, but just earn as much like provide as much value as you can doing whatever it is that you do. If you're an artist, then do art. If you're a doctor, be the best doctor you can be. But then, like I said, save as much of that as you can in Bitcoin every month. And that in itself maybe could be like a part 3 to our interview. It's like I struggled with, like, I had discovered Bitcoin, I knew it was valuable, but then the question was, how do you get more of it, right? Like
Yeah.
that, I feel like, is a big unlock for me over the last year or two. And it has a lot less to do with Bitcoin and a lot more to do with visualization, which is like a topic I'm very passionate about now. And I've been kind of going deep into the science and
Oh
all
yeah,
of
we
that
talked about this
behind
once.
it.
I remember.
But yeah, but I think so. Yeah, so that's the real question, is like, because I think a lot of your listeners are probably already like, okay, I'm sold on Bitcoin, but like I make less than I spend every month. So how can I buy Bitcoin? Or I have credit card debts, or I have, so like I can't get Bitcoin. So that to me has been a thing that I've been thinking a lot about, yeah, over the last year or two. And again, I mean, we can kind of leave it at that, or happy to double click, but yeah, to me, that's like a big one.
Yeah, let's go. We'll do a part 2 and we'll go into that. I think
Cool.
that's a great topic to talk about. And then the last question there.
Yeah,
Um,
what am I working on? You said so.
what are you
Uno
working on?
Coin has always been front and center, right? So that's now we're going to have our 11-year anniversary next month. That's India's first Bitcoin exchange. We're, I think, one of maybe 2 companies that have Bitcoin crypto withdrawals and deposits. So if you believe not your keys, not your coins, we're like the only I call us India's first and last Bitcoin exchange, because all the international exchanges were banned a couple months ago. So
Wow.
really, really proud of the UnoCoin team, and UnoCoin is like rising. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The second project, maybe I'll do a quick call out for, is Matador. Matador.network is a website. We're a Canadian pubco. We're kind of following in Michael Saylor's footsteps a lot. We have UTXO, which is David Billy, the guy that got Trump into Bitcoin. He's one of our main investors. We have Alex Tapscott and a whole bunch of like really, really amazing people, like Devin leading the charge. And yeah, and then a couple other things. Yeah, I work on something called Sapien, which is a decentralized
Oh,
AI platform. I work on an ordinals project called Bitbars with my friend Antoine, who I've known for 10 years.
oh,
But
cool.
I'd say those are maybe top 4 or 5 things that I've got my mind on. And then in my time off, I'm dreaming about working on a humanoid someday. Yeah,
Oh, cool. Wow. Wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah.
And I feel like there's so many things that you can relate to Bitcoin and just do because of Bitcoin, because you have the financial benefits, the financial freedom to do it, and it just changes everything about how I personally see the world. And the fact that you're doing all this, you're working on all this, it's great. It's great. It's great that you're doing this.
Yeah, man, I think exactly. I think someone asked me yesterday, one of my friends, like, so Sunny, like, can you just retire, like, type of thing? It's like, but why would you ever want to, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's, the exit plan is Bitcoin, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, so just keep, and again, like, if you're doing it right, then that Bitcoin should be something that you don't even spend. You just kind of keep for generations, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I love it, love it. Anyways, thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me on the show
Of
and
course.
give me a chance to talk about Bitcoin.
Absolutely, Sunny. Also, what I'll do is I'll link your. Do you want me to link your Twitter in the description there?
Yeah, that
Link
works.
that, and
Yeah,
then yeah,
that
perfect.
works.
Okay, so
And then
then we
my,
can
website is sunnyray.com, and yeah, people
perfect.
can get a hold of me there.
Audience will find you. I'm sure they found some value in this. I'm sure people found a lot of value in this. Actually, they'll find you. I'm sure. I'm sure they will. They'll go to you and they'll help you grow.
Cool, man. Well, once again,
Awesome.
congrats to you, buddy. Like, I
Appreciate
really
it.
look up to you. You, like I said, you've turned me into mini you now. So, all right, good job,
That's
buddy.
really funny.
All right,
Appreciate it. Thank you, Sunny.
yeah, man.
Appreciate your time. I'm just gonna end the. Sorry, give me one
Yep.
second. We can end